We are back at 7:29 on this Tuesday morning. The sun is up. Good morning. I'm Ann Wyatt Little.
We can see the buildings behind us now. I love it. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jason Harper.
And I'm Julian Tedor. We have meteorologist Ted Faden here. And Ted, for everybody who they're returning to work today because they had the day off, a little bit better in terms of the rain conditions than what we saw yesterday, right?
Yeah, I should have pulled an Annie yesterday and said the sun will come out today, because it's today now. Yesterday it would have been tomorrow.
Yeah.
But passing cloud cover, we're going to have the isolated showers and storms later on, but still a little bit of that patchy fog as you get your morning started. And we're going to be muggy today. Could even feel like
I already got the
hotter than it
text. It's so muggy this morning.
Oh, yeah. My apologies right now. Taking you outside, though, shouldn't be too bad of a morning or an afternoon. Grab the umbrella, and, of course, make sure you have the sunglasses, too, because you might see some sunshine and you might see some rain. We're taking a look over our South Park neighborhood, which is holding on to mostly cloudy skies, temperatures in the 70s to start. We're going to be making a run for the upper 80s, but could feel like 90. There's this pesky shower starting to develop north of the Queen City along I-77 from Lincolnton into Concord. We also have our mountain counties getting some of that rain this morning, and even the patchy fog, 3/4 of a mile for Morganton, improved up to 2 miles visibility towards Statesville. Everybody else mostly clear. Just be on the lookout for some fog here and there with the light rain chances and the low rain chances throughout much of the day. Can't rule out an isolated storm as you get into your afternoon and evening. We'll be timing that out for you just a little bit later on. Just know as you head out the door this morning, sunglasses, umbrella, water, and coffee. Temperatures in the mid-70s. You're going to have that muggy start, and then later on to this afternoon, it might even be a little bit more on the hot side. So one last check of your bus stop forecast. Low 70s for the kids this morning. Patchy fog or mostly cloudy skies will make way for some sunshine. A mix of sun and clouds with temperatures in the mid-80s. Mostly cloudy, though, as you head into the evening with those showers and storms starting to develop from our mountain counties, leaking down towards the Queen City. We'll continue to watch things for you and take a look at your forecast close to home and really what the rest of the week has in store coming up in just a little bit. But let's get you out there on the roadways here at 7.
All right, thank you, Ted. You're looking live at the scene of the crash on the west side. This is on Ashley Road at Bullard Street, where police are blocking both sides of Ashley Road until they get it cleared up. It does look like they are making some some progress with one tow truck there on the scene. The crash is being cleared. Traffic is being diverted through the neighborhood. Now, that's on Ashley Road, just south of Allegheny Street, not far from Harding University High School. Now, most of the slowing you see on our speed map this morning is pretty typical for 7:30, but we do have one thing to warn you about on 485. Police are clearing a crash that happened on the inner loop of 485 at Albemarle Road, but it's in the median area, so it's slowing traffic on both sides of 485 through Mint Hill. We'll get another check of your pinpoint traffic here in about 15 minutes.
South Carolina health officials are working to end the spread of monkeypox by expanding vaccination eligibility today. The shots will be available open to men who have sex with other men or identify as gay, bisexual, transgender, gender fluid, or non-binary. Earlier requirements called for monkeypox vaccinations for people actively engaged with others in the LGBTQ+ community. Health experts are reminding people anyone in close contact with an infected person can get monkeypox regardless of their sexual orientation. The latest state monkeypox numbers are from Friday. Officials had 115 reported monkeypox cases in South Carolina. The state's health regulators will have an update on their COVID and monkeypox case numbers. Health officials are reporting about 12,000 new cases. 25 of South Carolina's 46 counties are considered highly transmissible areas. Gas prices are expected to continue to fall after Labor Day, and some states could see below $3.
Julian is here to explain why drivers may soon feel relief at the pump. Julian.
That's right. Labor Day marks the end of the summer driving season, and as of now, gas prices are higher than last year, but they're a lot lower than originally predicted. The good news is the decline is expected to continue for now, as Americans drive less and continue to conserve fuel. AAA analysts report the national average for a gallon of regular is $3.78. In North Carolina, the average is $3.49. And then in South Carolina, the average is $3.39. But here's a big but. this could all change for a number of reasons. Just yesterday, leaders of OPEC nations announced they're cutting October's crude oil production by 100,000 barrels a day. Their reportedly unhappy recession fears are pushing down oil prices. OPEC's move only affects oil coming in October, but oil companies, refiners, and wholesale gas dealers often hike their prices early, and that means consumers may see higher gas prices before the end of this month. Analysts are also warning the outlook for gas prices could change at any point, particularly if there's a hurricane affecting the Gulf Coast. So far, hurricane season hasn't resulted in any major shutdowns in the coast, but any storms in the East Coast are likely to result in less energy demand rather than disruption. So as we take a look here with Ted Phaeton, the question is, how are we looking there in the tropics? Anything that could potentially disrupt gas production, any of those oil refineries, Ted?
Yeah, as of right now, not tracking any disturbances in the Gulf of Mexico or anything like that. We are still watching an active Atlantic Ocean, though, so we are still keeping an eye on the developments that could really impact even the Gulf of Mexico here moving forward. But for right now, 40 to 60% chance of a development for the cluster of storms over off of the west coast of Africa, pushing west. We also have Tropical Storm Earl, Hurricane Danielle. Let's dissect both of them really quick. Taking a look at Tropical Storm Earl, winds are sustained at 65 miles per hour. It's moving north at 7 miles per hour. Now it's forecasted to stay east of Bermuda. Could still cause some impacts, but then again, it's going to be moving into the northern Atlantic here throughout the next few days and into your weekend. Saturday is a Category 3 storm heading into the northern Atlantic. That's where currently we have Hurricane Danielle. Let's take a closer look at Hurricane Danielle, which is going to be continuing to move north throughout the week and then become a remnant low as it pushes east just off of the coast of Europe. We are going to still, again, see that kind of taper off in the northern Atlantic. I'm not expecting any major impacts close to land from these two storms, or that disturbance right now that's off the coast of Africa. But we'll watch it closely, though, as the hurricane season continues. Jason?
Ted, thank you very much. Nervousness in Uvalde on the very first day of school since that massacre back in May. What Texas authorities are doing to keep students and employees safe. We'll be right back.
It's also deploying resources. 33 DPS troopers will be at different campuses in the district to also bolster security. But as you heard, a lot of these parents still have concerns when it comes to school safety. Back to you.
Dan Wyatt and Charlotte.
On.
Thank you.
Was that Tyler?
That was...
Or was that Harlingen again?
Harlingen, yeah. Tyler's next.
All right.
Answer is yes. Good to know.
Hi. Law enforcement officials across the country are preparing to protect students as they head back to class.
Deadly shootings at schools nationwide are pushing officers to increase their training. Broward County, Florida Sheriff Gregory Tony is joining us now. And Sheriff, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. What a delight to be here.
Listen, we wanted to talk to you because back-to-school safety is on top of everyone's mind, especially after Uvalde. When you look at going back to school and you think safety and kids of your own, and when you put all that together as an officer, what are you most concerned about this year?
Well, I can tell you just from our own personal experiences here in Broward County, where we suffered one of the worst school shootings in American history, which occurred over at Stoneman Douglas back in 2018. We learned some hard lessons, both from an administrative standpoint, from a procedural standpoint, and then as far as training. Each year since Stoneman Douglas, we've taken drastic steps in terms of preparation from our school resource deputies receiving the state-of-the-art training and active shooter response protocol so that there's no confusion as to what their responsibilities are. We've enhanced different equipment from rifles to trauma plates to tactical medical gear, all which is kind of the tier recommended things that an administrator or law enforcement officer should be doing as they go underway for the school year.
How important is it to really dissect every minute and every second of these shootings so that we learn best practices so that agencies responding can really coordinate and work in sync with one another?
I think it's pivotal. We go back to about 1999 during the Columbine shooting, which changed the entire paradigm in terms of what law enforcement officers' responsibilities were supposed to be in terms of mitigating this harm to our communities. During that time, it was you stand by, you call SWAT, you wait for SWAT to respond on scene. But what we've learned from case study after case study since '99 all the way up into now is that we don't have time to wait. And so the national-based protocols that are introduced through the FBI and Homeland Security is really a two-pronged mission. One, we need to stop the killing, and we need to stop the dying. And so that's the national standard. It needs to be consistent from Broward County all the way to the Carolinas and from California all the way across to Alaska. This has to be consistent across the country.
Sheriff, you've helped create a training and a threat assessment platform that's now being used around the world. When you look at schools, where's the biggest struggle, you think? Is it because lack of money, lack of funding for the technology they need, lack of training, lack of knowledge, all the above?
I think there's a combination of it, most certainly. You got to think in terms of our schools. Our schools are not designed from a hardening standpoint with a high degree of security interest in it. And so there's vulnerabilities that exist from the infrastructure standpoint, access points, people being able to get into our schools pretty much very easily. So then you have that component where that has to be worked in within the school board, the districts, to figure out what things can they introduce, whether it be metal detectors, whether it be enhanced camera systems within the school to help mitigate it there. But then you do have the other variables in terms of looking what's occurred in the country from the 1960s and the deinstitutionalization of mental health care facilities. Oftentimes, the individuals that we discover have exhibited multiple patterns or behaviors that were indicative of them going to shoot up a school or create some mass shooting. So yeah, it's all of the above. It takes a combination of training, from the law enforcement standpoint, the introduction of enhanced protocols for hardening measures, school safety, and then of course, what are we doing for our civilians? Are we training them on the proper responses? Because often individuals are hurt, harmed, or killed, and they could have took steps to help save their own life.
Do you see a policy shift really at the local level? I mean, I know here in Charlotte, more metal detectors are being added into a number of schools as officers found more than 24 guns on different campuses just last school year.
I will say most certainly there's constantly an evolution of what needs to change. We here in Broward County was not a school system that was introducing metal detectors before Stoneman Douglas. However, looking at what occurred there, it was a great interest for our community to start putting forth as many steps as possible to help mitigate the threats, to include something we launched here, which is called a real-time crime center. It's a state-of-the-art facility. It gives our law enforcement personnel within our headquarters the ability to track and monitor over 18,000 camera systems spread across roughly 270 plus schools. So yes, we most certainly want to stay active in creating and putting things in place that's going to benefit school safety.
Sheriff, we know so much of what has happened in the past has been a mental health issue. What can the community do to sort of step up and try to help these issues with some of these students before the violence escalates?
I think we most certainly have to have a tracking mechanism in place and more resources available. I alluded to something we did here in Broward County with our real-time crime center tracking and monitoring these cameras. But one of the more core things that we've done was to introduce behavioral licensed therapists within that unit that gives us the ability to go out and reach some of these individuals and redirect them towards mental health care. One of the lacks that we have occurring in the country, and again, going back to hundreds of case studies, is there's times where we may have encountered an individual, but we can't arrest them. There's no probable cause. But we see at the time, there's so many indicators that this person is, they're not stable, they're suffering from disorders. Well, we now are shifting those individuals into mental health care facilities. And over the last year, we've done that over 730 times just here in Broward County.
Sheriff, what would you say to parents who are sending their kids off to school about getting involved and engaged and even having these conversations about what to do should a shooter be in their schools or really anywhere it could happen, as we've seen, unfortunately?
I think it's very important for parents to start having these tough conversations with their children and taking advantage of the different resources that are readily accessible. The FBI has an outstanding website where you can go in and discover anything that you have concerns about in terms of active shooter preparedness. Stay engaged with your school officials. Understand what the protocols are, what should take place, because when these events, devastate a campus, there's a lot of logistical things about, okay, where are we going to do family reunification? What are the procedures for where they should arrive? What type of communication they should be having with either 911 or non-emergency? These are things that can be done in advance so that the parents, one, could have a higher degree of sense of confidence about what's occurring in the school, but then they can also help prepare their kids to respond effectively.
Broward County, Florida Sheriff Gregory Tony, we thank you for your time. Thank you for your service down there in Florida, for what you've done with your program around the country and around the world. We're grateful for our local school resource officers and law enforcement here. Thanks for keeping everyone safe.
Outstanding. Thanks for having me on this morning. Take care, folks.
And such a great interview with him. It is coming up on 7:46. Today marks an unimaginable start to the new school year for the Uvalde community.
It's the first day back after a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary back in May.
Our Monica Madden is live at Dalton Elementary School. Monica, we want to say good morning, and I just can't imagine what folks must be feeling there this morning.
No words to describe what it is like. See this bus behind me. As you can imagine, for these parents, this should be a day full of excitement as students head back to the classroom. But for the parents of those 19 children, this is just a painful reminder that their kids will never have a first day of school again. And for parents of surviving children, although their kids will be returning on different campuses like this one, you can see some of that newly installed security fence behind me. It's still just a day that's bringing so much anxiety all back to that one day.
The emotions from May 24th are not lost upon Uvalde parents. Unthinkable fear as they waited helplessly to be reunited with their children, and some reunions never happened.
If she could sit here right now and just so I could touch her and hug her and kiss her and just tell her I loved her, that's something I can't have anymore,
We spoke to Alfred Garza in June, who lost his only daughter, Amory.
I just want her to be remembered as the beautiful soul she was.
Loyal and true, Uvalde strong.
Uvalde CISD pointing to its new measures to increase security.
There has been substantial fencing that has been replaced. Texas DPS, they will be on campuses each and every day.
The district also upgraded door locks.
Hold it.
But it's not enough for many students still traumatized.
I feel kind of nervous and scared if it's going to happen again.
And for parents like Adam Martinez.
So if we did make them go, we wouldn't feel safe.
His 2 children survived the shooting, but their scars are ever present.
The children have been traumatized by this.
Which is why his kids will start the school year from their home, learning virtually.
I feel like if the children are scared, it's going to be hard for them to learn.
Now, some parents have raised questions about the officers who were faulted for not responding quick enough to the shooting on May 24th. A lot of those officers are still responsible for keeping these campuses safe. Now, the state of Texas is also sending resources. 33 state troopers will be at different campuses in Uvalde CISD to also bolster security. But as you heard from that one parent, the concerns and the trust in school safety are still there. So it's a tough day for a lot of these families here in Uvalde. Back to you.
Monica, thank you. Time this morning, 7:48. Winds are coming out of the southwest at about 5 miles per hour. Temperatures in the mid-70s over Independence Boulevard as we have a little bit more of those wet roadways over Sharon-Ebony Road at Independence Boulevard. And, of course, clearing out some of that fog. We are looking at mid-70s for Monroe, Wadesboro, Rockingham, 75 degrees as well for Lancaster, 71 for Morganton along that I-40 corridor with 72 for Salisbury and Statesville, mid-60s this morning over towards our mountain counties. We get into the mid-70s for your highs for our mountain counties while everybody else peaks into the upper 80s, a high of 87 for Concord, Albemarle, Charlotte, 87 Statesville. I think we can get to near 90 as you head out towards Shaw and Lancaster for your afternoon. Those upper 80s could even feel like 90s when you factor in the humidity and dew points. We're taking a look in terms of this cooling trend that takes hold after today. So upper 80s for Tuesday, leaking into the low 80s by the time we get to Thursday as a cold front brings those temperatures down a little bit. You're looking at the average high of about 85 degrees this time of year for context. We are going to be continuing to see some of those scattered rain and storm chances that head into play throughout the afternoon and the day, mainly over towards our mountain counties, and then some of that developing around the Queen City as we get into your afternoon. So keeping an eye on that satellite and radar. Throughout the afternoon, we get a little bit more sunshine. Low 80s for lunchtime. Highs get into the upper 80s as those showers and storms develop over towards that I-40 corridor that leaks south, heading towards the Queen City throughout the day, eventually tapering off overnight into your Wednesday, where we're going to start off a little cloudier. So when do the storms start? 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for our mountain counties, 6 to 8 p.m. along the Queen City, around the surrounding areas, and then you're looking more in the way of the 8 to 10 o'clock hour south and east of Charlotte. So overall, you're looking at that rainfall anywhere between 1/10 of an inch to maybe 1/4 of an inch. We're going to be keeping a close eye in terms of those overnight lows in the 70s. We have the cooling trend heading into the weekend in the second half of the work week, low 80s with the higher storm chances taking hold. You're watching Carolina's own Queen City News Now, the most news in the Carolinas. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Time is 7:54 on your Tuesday. Queen City News brings you 11 hours of news each and every day. But here are a few of the top stories that you need to know before you head on out the door. Charlotte City Council will be sworn in today. They'll be getting right to work, tasked with electing a new mayor pro tem right after taking their oath of office. We're also expecting to learn more about when Rowan County middle schools will reopen after a mold issue. West Rowan Middle School students have been learning from home since last month due to a microbial growth being found in the HVAC system. Later today, school officials will reevaluate the condition of the building to see if it's fit enough for students to return. State health officials are expected to give an update today on COVID and monkeypox cases in South Carolina. As of Friday, 115 monkeypox cases have been reported in the Palmetto State. State officials are reporting about 12,000 new cases. 25 of the 46 counties in South Carolina are considered highly transmissible areas. You're watching Carolina's own Queen City News now as we leave you with a shot of Independence Boulevard. We'll be right back after the break.